and thus all the Bermuda players started Buddy Fight. Hello and welcome everyone to today's deck profile. It's going to be a little bit different. We're going to be doing Buddy Fight, and yes, this is the waifu deck, Superheroines that I used to come third with in Germany. A lot of people asked for deck profile, so I was like, might as well. But please do not ask too much for Buddy Fight videos. I don't enjoy making them too much because I'm not that into the game as I used to be, and honestly Vanguard is a much bigger passion of mine than Buddy Fight, so I apologize for all of you people that keep asking for Buddy Fight content, but for me it's only when I really feel like it, and usually right after regionals that I make some content. But yeah, so with this deck I went X1 in Swiss, my only loss being to Executioners, and then in top 8 I beat Sun Dragons, and in top 4 I lost to Fifth Omni, and then when I played for third place against 72 Pillars I won that as well. So this does not have the Captain Answer Overlord in it, it's just like the basic Superheroine build, but let's go over it, and I'm going to try to adapt my usual Vanguard deck profiling style into this, so we'll see how that goes. We'll open up with the size 1s, and we'll start with Uniform Warrior Racer Frill. So she's a size 1, we'll play 4 of her. Her skill is, when you call her, when she enters the field, if you have another superheroine on the field, you can draw a card. So as soon as you have another one, you just call her and draw an extra card. So it's really good because you can do this every single turn, because you're able to bounce her through your main size 3, who is also our buddy. So I didn't show that, but we'll go over her skill a bit later. But a really important card. 2 crit is nice. The fact that she has move is also really important. So if you don't know move, it's basically when the battle phase starts on either your or your opponent's turn, you're able to move it to any other free circle. So yeah, really important card. She's kind of the draw engine of the deck because she just gets you an extra card every turn essentially. So moving on to the other size 1, we have Uniform Warrior Sailor Frill. So her skill is a counter, meaning you can do it during your opponent's turn as well. You can discard a superheroine from your hand. If you do, you rest a size 2 or less monster or item on your opponent's field. So, and you can only use it once per turn. So when they set up some really annoying item, for example, you can just pitch a superheroine from your hand and rest it. So it's pretty nice. And I didn't really use her, but she does have her use. I only played 2 because I just generally don't use her that much, but if I didn't forget my sideboard, I'd probably have an extra copy or 2 in the sideboard for her. Also the sideboard, yeah, like it's the one I used in the, like that you'll see on the website, is like most of it is borrowed. Just like one barbed wire was mine and the new plasma mine was mine. But basically, I'll talk about it a bit later, but first let's go over the rest of the deck. Next we have Justice Envoy Angel Frill. So we have 3 of her. Her skill is when a superheroine or guardian, we don't care about the guardian's part, so when a superheroine enters the field other than this, when a superheroine other than this card enters the field, you can put a soul from a card on your opponent's field into their drop zone. So this is really good when you're playing against tanky decks that have a lot of souls, so you just like, as soon as you call another one, so even if you have her on the field and you call a Racer Frill, so you draw a card and then you can use her skill to pop a soul. So it's really nice. Like, she's coming useful against some matchups, but I side her out when I'm playing against something that obviously doesn't run a lot of soul. And then her other skill is when she attacks, if you have 5 or less cards in your drop zone, you gain a life, and she has move as well. So really well balanced card. She has everything you want really. She's one of the newer cards, so I like her a lot for that. Next up we have 2 Rescue Dragon Project Gunner. Skill's pretty simple. When you're transformed, which you are most of the time, you can discard him to gain 2 gauge. I just use him for a little gauge gain when I don't have hyper energy, so he's really just in there for that. And then finally the last size 1 is a Searcher, which is familiar Blitz. His skill is, first to call him you have to pay 1 gauge, and then when he enters the field you can search your deck for any superheroine or a Bandage Warrior Mass Advantage, who is our buddy, put into your hand and shuffle your deck. So optimally when you're starting, and yeah, when you're starting and you know you can only attack once, chances are if you get him, you just go into him, search for something, and then you're able to make some nice combo plays next turn. The fact that he's a Searcher is so good because you can search into any superheroine, which is super important, and like it's it's a really good card. It'll get you your Mass Advantage as well, which is also an important piece of the deck. So yeah, it's a really good card, so definitely a 4 of. Moving on to the size 2s, we only have 2 of them, and we're going to start off with Uniform Warrior Blazer Frill. Her skill is quite simple. When she attacks and destroys a monster, you can put the top card of your deck into your gauge, but her stats are nice. She's a 6/2, so she can pick up 6 walls most of the time, because like that's kind of the thing that the deck struggles with, getting over big walls. That's why the soul removal is really important, and then you just kind of hope to poke with this, maybe link attack with something, and then gain a gauge off of it. She also has move, which is really important because you can move around and then bounce her after that. I'll explain the bouncing a bit later, but we play 4 because I really like the fact that she's the fact that she's 6k attack is what really sells her for me. And the other size 2, like you could play 4, but I feel like if I have too many of them, it just clusters my hand, even though she's super important. But let's just move on to her immediately. And this is Uniform Warrior Formal Frill. So she's honestly one of the best cards in the deck, but I only play 3 because, like I said, it clusters my hand too much if I just get more than 1, essentially. Her call cost is 1 gauge, which already kind of hurts. She's 6/2, which is important, but the 1 gauge kind of hurts, so she's free. That's a big important factor about Blazer Frill. But anyway, she has 2 skills. If you have a superhero on your field, so let's say if you're transformed into one, all superheroines get Penetrate. So she gets Penetrate, and let's say a size 1 on the field will get Penetrate. And then her other skill is at the end of the battle that she attacks, if you have another superheroine on the field, she gains double attack, so she restands and she can attack again. So this is really good because you can have her, the size 1, and your mass advantage, so you have 2, 4, 6, 8 damage. And then if you combo it with, like, either when the spells we're going to go into or the impact monster, you put that up to 10 or, you know, even more damage. So it's really, she sets up your OTKs really well, and I've won so many games during regionals thanks to her. Like, I could play 4, I have the 4th one, but I just don't play it because I feel like it clusters your hand too much, so I avoid it for that. And we'll immediately go into our one and only size 3, who is our buddy monster as well, which is Bandage Warrior Mass Advantage. So he's our buddy, so we do play 4, and his skill is first a call cost of 2 gauge, but you can transform it for 1 gauge instead. And his first skill is at the end of your turn, you return him to your hand from your field, so he always goes back to hand at the end of turn. And he has a counter skill. If a superheroine on your field is being attacked, you can pay his transform cost to transform him and bounce the superheroine back into your hand on your opponent's turn. So let's say if my Blazer Frill is being attacked, I can pay 1 gauge, put the Blazer Frill back to my hand, and transform during my opponent's turn. And because transform gives me the 6k defense, I'm going to be able to deny some attacks possibly as well. So really important card because of that. Is one of the main factors of the deck. The fact that a lot of these superheroines have move is a big factor because you can move them to center and then be able to use his skill pretty much all the time. And then you have some combos that go off him as well, and he has nice stats like 7 to 6 is pretty good. The 7 usually gets over most walls, but sometimes it doesn't, which can get pretty annoying, so then you just have to blink attack, you have no choice. But really important card. I really like his art, I really like his design as a card itself, like skill wise and stuff. So really good card, is one of the main cards of the deck. And then the last monster is the impact monster, which kind of completes all the combos, which is Mass Vantage, Lavish Body, Gorgeous Mask. His skill is quite simple. His call cost is pay 2 gauge and return a monster or item from your field into your hand, so you can return a superheroine or, you know, basically anything. And he has 7/3/6 in stats, so the 3 crit is quite good. And when he's destroyed, you can transform or ride into anything without paying its cost. So if he's destroyed on the field, you can go into him for free without paying the 1 gauge that you would normally pay for his transform cost. So really good card because, again, we can talk about the combo. So we have 2, 4 damage from her, 6 from the size 1, another 2 from him, so that's 8. Go into him, that's 11, and we can still combo that even further to put it up to 15, but we'll go over the combo card a bit later. But that's it for the monsters. So I really like the setup, honestly. It feels pretty consistent. I never really had problems except for games where I completely brick and just draw like a bunch of size 2s, even though I only play like 7. But yeah, so let's go over the spells. We're going to start off with a non-counter spell, which is obviously Hyper Energy, really important card. Most of you that play BUDDYFIGHT already know what it does. It's just when you cast it, you gain 4 gauge. So I play 3 because I don't want it to cluster too much, and I do play the 2 Project Gunners, but you can bump it up to 4 if you want and not play the Project Gunners. But I do quite like Hyper Energy as a 3 for now. But it's always a good card. It's forever going to be a good card because of just how well it's... Like, it's just such a good Hero World card, so it's kind of unarguable. Next up, we have Defeat Them in My Place. So, to cast this card, you have to put a monster from your field into your drop zone, and then once you do that, you put the top card of your deck into your gauge, so you gain a gauge for that, and the next time you would be dealt damage, it's reduced to 0. So, what you often do is, if you can't bounce, or like if you've already bounced a monster for Mass Advantage's effect, and you still have a monster on the field and they attack it, you can cast this instead to pop the monster yourself and gain a gauge off of it. So like it would be destroyed regardless because you can't block it, assumedly. But instead you destroy yourself, you gain a gauge, and the next time they would deal damage to you is reduced to 0. So it's essentially Nullifier. Really good card. I enjoy it a lot. It's just a really good card, and I have nothing bad to say about it. Next up we have the 3, that's a Shallow Shot. It's essentially just Pay 1 gauge, counter, you destroy one of their attack 5,000 or less monsters. It came in handy quite a few times. It's good for picking up small numbers, so I can't remember which decks it was most good against, but it was pretty good against quite a few matchups, so I keep it in there. It's generally quite useful, so it's kind of hard to argue against that. And then next up we have the 4 basic nullifiers, which is I've seen 3 moves. When you're being attacked on your opponent's turn and you don't have a monster in the center, you nullify the attack. So the most basic nullifier, it's just important. You play it because it's good, like it's hard to argue against that. And then we're almost done with the spells. So next up we have Sailor Barrier. So this is the Superheroine exclusive nullifier. Has, well, 2 effects essentially, so you can only cast it if you have a Superheroine on the field. Has counter, you choose one of the 2 and use it. So the first one if it's during an attack on your opponent's turn, you just nullify it. And then the second one is you choose a Superheroine on your field. For this turn, the next time that card would be destroyed, it remains on the field. So this is good because you can use it on either turn as well. Well, at least the second part, because the first part is just an attack nullify, but the second one, for example, if I attack with my size 2, the one that, Formal Frill, if it would be destroyed by some effect on my opponent's turn, I can cast Sailor Barrier to keep it there, and then still go on with my attacks, so, you know, it's good for that, and then it's not once per turn either, so I can just, if I have another one, I'm just gonna do it just so I can get my OTK out. But it's a really good card. Sailor Barrier is pretty important. Honestly, I have nothing bad to say about it. And then we have our last spell, which is part of the OTK combo, which puts it up to 15 damage actually, which is I Am a Rose Who Cuts Down Evil. So you pay 1 gauge to cast it, and then on counter you can stand one of your mass advantage on the field, and it gets power plus 2k, defense plus 2k, and critical plus 1, and counterattack. So this is important because you can actually do it on both turns, so you can do it on your own turn to just put up your damage. So you give 1 extra crit to, like, if you give an extra crit to the impact monster, it's going to swing for 4. If you give an extra crit to the normal monster, it's going to swing for 3. So even if you don't get the impact monster, you get 2, 6, 8, and then 11 with this. So it's still an OTK. And otherwise you can cast this on your opponent's turn to give the +2/+2 buff to kind of keep yourself up on even more defense, because then you become a 9/3/8 on your opponent's turn with counterattack, so you can pop whatever they're attacking with. So really good card. I have 1 foil thanks to my friend Ling, who sent it to me quite a while ago, but yeah, so really good card, really important part of the deck. And then the last 2 cards of the deck are the Flag and Buddy. So that's pretty much it for the deck. I enjoyed it a lot. It's like I took it because I enjoyed playing it so much, and I'm glad that it showed up really well. In terms of sideboard, I'm going to pop a picture right now of the sideboard I used at the tournament. Now, most of this is borrowed. The only ones I actually own myself for the new Plasma Mine, which I sided in against a few matchups like Stars to deny the Astraeus, and like there was a Aster player there, so if I would have faced them, I would have had to side it in as well. And then the Barbed Wire, I only had 1, but I got to borrow 2 more, so I had 3, and it was such an important piece. You can ignore the rest of the cards there, but when you want to play stuff like the Spell Nullifier, and then maybe 1 more of the Resting Superheroine, so that's kind of how I would build a sideboard now. That's what my sideboard would have been if I didn't forget it at home at the time of the tournament, so that's kind of it. But that's pretty much it for me, so thank you very much for watching. Maybe this got some of you Vanguard people into BUDDYFIGHT, because the deck is really fun, and I enjoyed it a lot, and has waifu art, and it's really good. So yeah, if you like what you see, then feel free to pick it up and pick up BUDDYFIGHT, because it's a really fun game, and I do recommend it. So that's pretty much it for me, and I'll see you guys next time.